Hello everyone, this is Tweedy Gamer and welcome to episode 4 of the Tweedycast, a soon-to-be weekly podcast series dedicated to the Tweedy side of gaming. I'm your host Albert, and for those of you listening for the first time, I'll briefly explain what Tweedy Game is all about. So Tweedy Game is a website and YouTube channel hosted by me, Albert, aka the tattooed guy who wears tweed jackets in my videos and at gaming events. And basically I created it in response to many gaming outlets all feeling pretty much the same and saying the same things. It's obviously a bit trickier to make gaming content that doesn't follow trends or what most popular sites do, but I don't mind because the result is something refreshingly different and distinct for me to create and hopefully for all of you to enjoy. The rest is pretty self-explanatory, so without further ado, let's begin the episode. So this episode is entitled Dark Souls 3, Inspiration and Inception. Those of you who have been with the channel from the start would remember the 3-part Bloodborne series that basically kicked off the channel, and I'm very happy to report that this is the first of 3 kind of analogous episodes, which will cover Dark Souls 3 in almost the exact same manner as Bloodborne. And just touching on that, I need to say that with the fact that Dark Souls 3 has kind of rolled in almost a handful of months after Bloodborne was just starting to kind of peter off, is just almost surreal. It was when I saw the announcement and I heard the no with that kind of information dump that they received, I was beside myself. I couldn't believe it. I started this channel with Bloodborne. It got me my first 60 subscribers. I'm very close to that team of people who made that game and to that game itself, and that process of having begun Tweedy Gamer with Bloodborne is very, like, I have great memories of putting that together, and I had actually started getting a bit nostalgic for that time when I was just getting started and putting together those videos, which, as you can see, for the Tweedycasts I've only got about 3 so far on the channel, but that's definitely going to change now with this weekly format, which I'm going to be gunning for. So yeah, now I have been doing a few videos with Brendan of SoKeenForIt.com. Those segments are probably going to peter off now. They were interim solutions between being able to put these videos together during the iPad the iPad months, as I call them. I'm back to a laptop now, and I'm back to making the content as I did before. I am incredibly excited about what's paving the way essentially to 2016, which is looking to be an enormous year for gaming, and I'll be touching on that in future videos. But to stay on topic, the inspiration and inception of Dark Souls 3. Now, first of all, I will discuss, there's the inspiration of Dark Souls, itself, which I'm sure you have, if you're listening to this channel and you've heard these terms, you will be familiar with Vatividya, with Dave Control, with Lobos Jr., and those excellent content creators who cover those aspects about the earlier Dark Souls games, so I don't feel like I have to explain too much of what the earlier games are, and it's fairly self-explanatory. But basically, when I first sort of started putting together the research for this episode, the Inspiration and Inception episode, it was like a floodgate, because by the time post Bloodborne, especially when From Software was getting more exposure, by the time on the 3rd installment of a series, the amount of lore, the amount of forums, the amount of posts, the amount of content that's out there to look up what was the inspiration for Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 was just overwhelming. So the first thing I figured decided to do is kind of do what I did a little bit with the Bloodborne video, and where I talked about Hidetaka, the creator himself, and what he was inspired by and his early influences. And I discussed this with Bloodborne in terms of H.P. Lovecraft and Dracula, and I'm certain beyond anything that as when I started properly actually focusing on Dark Souls, I am certain that Dark Souls was inspired by in the same way that Bloodborne was inspired by, I believe there's some Castlevania there, there's some, in terms of the gaming's heritage, what those inspirations are. I really feel like Dark Souls is essentially an incredibly cinematically presented, beautiful, like a drop-dead gorgeous version of Ghouls and Ghosts. Now, Ghouls and Ghosts is, I'm going to show some images actually while I'm speaking. It was one of the formative gaming experiences of my life. I didn't get to play it that much, and in fact, and this is the sign that it was one of the earliest, I have very kind of sketchy memories of it, but it has always been those words in my head. We have relationships with the games that we first encountered, and those words are just comfortable and familiar words, and that they've basically held lodgings in your subconscious or in your being for many years, and Ghouls and Ghosts just rolls from my tongue so easily, and when I started seeing the parallels, I had a huge forehead slap moment with Dark Souls, and I'll actually show a comment here, that I screen captured of the first time that I've looked up Ghouls and Ghosts in a while, and the first comment was, "This game was hard as balls," and I completely agree. It was brutal, and the gameplay, sort of the whole game can be completed, I think, in roughly 30 minutes, but nevertheless, all of those elements, the armor, the cape, the undead warriors shambling towards you, in many ways those were tropes of games earlier on, but something about Ghouls and Ghosts just speaks directly to Dark Souls itself. And, the reason basically why I'm not doing a Dark Souls 1 and 2 3-part series leading up to this is because, quite simply, we are starting, just like when I was posting with Bloodborne, then we were starting on the path towards the big Bloodborne reveals. It's incredibly exciting to basically have almost like a parallel, analogous experience of the Bloodborne event, of that IP kind of, stretching out and becoming what it is now, to be able to do the same with Dark Souls 3, within a few months of Dark Souls, Bloodborne winding down, is just surreal and wonderful. It just feels like the same feeling of you hear when your favorite band is back in the studio right after having finished their tour for their latest the album that came before, and it's just exciting, physically exciting. So I'm just sort of wanting to riff with you guys about that, because nothing can be a better source of motivation and inspiration to make a video than just pure excitement. I'm really not in it. I'm not into Tweety Gamer for wanting to compare myself to other channels or do better or worse than them. I don't really think about that. It's just content that I'm proud to put out, and that is almost basically like my own personal chronicle of my relationship with this industry. And I honestly don't take it for granted that you guys join me. That'll be something that I'll never lose touch with. However far this channel goes, this never will get to basically reading off a script, doing all that, and losing touch. So to you first 60 subscribers, and to the hopefully a few more that will join us, thank you so much. Just wanted to add that in there. But basically, yeah, no other kinds of thoughts and subject matter will get me as sentimental than thinking about my earliest gaming memories, but let's stick to them. Ghouls and Ghosts, and the figure that I'm going to refer to with Dark Souls 3, and he has a name, or he or she has a name in the promotional materials, is the Red Knight. And this is confirmed on the... he's sort of the central figure with his cape sort of always burning, and a very kind of almost emaciated, thin-looking knight with singed armor and everything. He has been confirmed as called the Red Knight off of the Dark Souls official Twitter, which I'll show a screenshot of here. I'll be discussing the Red Knight in the next video in more detail, but needless to say, Hidetaka never names things for no reason. There are countless lore analysis videos that allude to Hidetaka purposefully naming things according to what they are, and I did a bit of my own dabbling into the symbology of why he named Yharnam Yharnam. Yharnam has roots in the word for yearning and yearning for salvation, and it's one of the reasons why this man and his creations give me such fuel to want to make content around his creations, because they are almost like incomplete archaeological findings. You just feel like completing the puzzle. He's really engaging that human quality of just becoming curious when you're not given the full picture. So I'm finding that very much firing up again, pun intended, firing up again with Dark Souls 3. So my personal connection to the inspiration that I believe, nothing's that I can see on Google or anything in any articles is official, but that I sense inspiration-wise, and that's for the Dark Souls series at large, I'm sure, but Dark Souls 3 immediately made me think of Ghouls and Ghosts. And I will also touch on the opportunity that after, Bloodborne being essentially my first quote-unquote Souls game, I had almost kept Dark Souls, which is what Bloodborne came from, on the periphery. It was sort of fuzzy, and I personally, and I hope I don't offend anyone, and I hope you'll understand, but I wasn't too drawn to the earlier, I think Dark Souls 2 was the one that pushed me away the most. It just seemed like a little bit rushed, the character design and the environments, and it just felt a bit incomplete, and again, you can do no better for a series than to have the quote-unquote worst installment be something that most outlets gave 8 out of 10 and above. That's phenomenal. It's, that's kind of what you want for your quote-unquote worst game. But touching on that and the inception of Dark Souls, I'm sure, is that without a doubt, Hidetaka would have been in the middle of creating creating Bloodborne, which is what has been discussed and covered by other outlets, and I think me as well. I talked about how Bloodborne was the result of Sony approaching Hidetaka with the idea of creating an IP, and then he absolutely jumped at that opportunity and created something which I believe is going to become an eventual gaming classic. Some of what Bloodborne brought to the table with lore and iconography, and now I believe that the Bloodborne's Hunter is one of the most iconic images in the current generation of gaming. Personally, it's instantly recognizable. That's obviously going to be for the test of time to prove, but that's what I believe. For me, the inception of Dark Souls 3 that I've been able to read about and glean, and sort of, again, this channel is the worthwhileness of doing what this channel does, which sometimes doesn't necessarily involve too many sources. It makes sure that I'm not talking complete gibberish and just wildly speculating, but it also has the breathing room of just wanting to explore subject matter. And for that reason, I never feel as though, just because, like with now Dark Souls 3, which we don't have that much background on it too much, there hasn't been that many interviews, the worthwhileness of doing content like analyses even this early on, I'm always grateful in the end for wherever I go conversationally, wherever I go in these posts, in terms of subject matter, because without having had that impetus and that prompt from this mission I'd given myself to discuss this game at the stage that it's at, I wouldn't have discovered many of the awesome and beautiful, curious things and knowledge enriching things that I have. And I'll be discussing a few of those in the next video, especially around the Red Knight, who I'm really I think I'm kind of getting wrapped up in researching what I can about him, because he's not very covered, and hopefully if some of you have searched for content about him and come to this video, hopefully this will scratch that itch a little bit until some more comprehensive and sort of features-rich content is put out. But yeah, so I think the inception of Dark Souls 3 would have had to have had the fire and the success and the feat of Bloodborne, as one of the sources of its inception, because Hidetaka would have been doing Bloodborne, and just it's very clear that they're sister games. There are some outlets are calling them stablemates, and it's absolutely something that I wouldn't put past him to be someone who, in the middle of making one game, is thinking about how he could apply or how he would have applied what he's learning and creating and pioneering for this new game to stuff that he's done in the past. It's what artists do. They compare themselves with their past work, and they constantly, especially some of the best and most humble artists, are the ones who think that they could have done better with various things that they've released, which have, gone on to become classics. But Hidetaka, I'm certain that it's in his personality style to be someone who was making Bloodborne and just started thinking, and his mind he would have just sort of started like just slowly, like the embers, like glowing hotter and hotter, and then just this fire of, gosh, I can take what I'm learning with Bloodborne and apply it to a Dark Souls game, and it's evident in the early screenshots, which I'm showing a few of here, just how much Bloodborne has given energy and given thematic tinges towards Dark Souls. I mean, with Yharnam being a place that is basically doomed, it's just especially in the early materials, it was just, hey, this is this city that's going to shit, and not to say that the earliest Dark Souls games weren't like that as well. I mean, there was this feeling of, this is the world and it is dark, not the world is ending, and with Dark Souls 3, the world is most definitely ending, and that is something that is being communicated in interviews and in promotional materials, and also in terms of releases and where Dark Souls 3 sits in this series. It has been confirmed a few times that Dark Souls 3 will be the last of this kind of brace of games, this trilogy. I think it's been said that it's going to go in possibly a little bit of a different direction after Dark Souls 3. Initially, it was reported that it did mean that it would be the last Dark Souls, but that was quickly rectified, and it was explained that no, it's not the last one, but this is going to tie these three together, and a little bit like, I suppose, the Halo games, which have the Master Chief trilogy. They are planning on doing more content, possibly in other directions and in possibly other genres, is what I think that I've read out there. But yeah, so with Hidetaka kind of approaching his, I don't know if it would have been him to approach it. I don't know if, based on the success of Bloodborne, I'm sure that they had already been working on Dark Souls 3 in some incarnation right after Dark Souls 2, with projections based on the success of the first one and how well the second one was going to do. It's just how teams work. But what turns a team from sort of peripherally, vaguely working on a game into something where there's active development and, active investment from the team into it, what Bloodborne experienced is totally indicative in the industry, with ratings, with gaming scores, with the accolades that it's been getting, and and actually basically what From has been known for, which is just cold, hard, honest, brilliant gameplay, no nonsense. And in fact, in my research with From, I noticed that they're very hard to pin down with like an official website of some kind, and they toil, those guys. They make their content. They do what they do, they let it speak for itself, and it's so admirable. Vatividya put it quite eloquently when he said that these guys tell stories through mechanics. They invest in their mechanics, and that is all they're going to do. Other places development studios have a lot of talk to them. They talk a lot of game, but From Software bring a lot of game. They bring it, and it's something that I respect them enormously for. And it's something that they stand out a lot away from most people. I wish that it was more common, but in the very fact that From have embodied this studio, which we immediately associate with quality and like durableness. Talk about Tweed. I was putting together my description for this show, which I'll be reading for each one, and I was thinking of drawing parallels with the actual material of Tweed, which is at once classy but also durable. It sort of fell apart, and I just ended up conceding that I just wanted the channel to be what it is and self-explanatory. But essentially, there are we're referring to both, I guess, Tweety Gamer and From in the same brace. I really respect content creators who just make their content and they walk their talk, what little talks they do, and but they can be also classy about it. And there's something that I know it's a bit vague and a bit weird to refer to it, but the material of Tweed, it's associated with being classy but also durable, and it's associated with stuff that's held in high regard, but it's also something that can go out and get shit done in the country. So it's weird, I know, but it's the only term that I ended up being satisfied with. So there's a little Easter egg of the inspiration of Tweety Gamer's name right there. But just while we're discussing the inception of things. But basically, this ties me into, I was watching Dave Control's coverage of his interview with Hidetaka, and that whole event that happened, I think, in the Napa Valley, which was fantastic to hear about. It actually cemented for me just exactly where this product is at. If it's to the level where they're able to essentially hire an entire castle or part of a castle or whatever to be able to promote the game, it's definitely solid. There's definitely big higher up business decisions and reasoning saying like this thing is going to be worth this investment. It's starting to be a product in its own right. It's starting to have this identity, and I'm sure that Dark Souls 3 is much further along than we think it is. In fact, I believe it's been confirmed that it was in development alongside, as in simultaneously, to Bloodborne, which would have had to mean that between being the president of From Software and also directing Bloodborne, Hidetaka has also been directing Dark Souls 3. I believe he's co-directing it as well, to an extent, a bit like how Hajime Tabata was co-directing Final Fantasy 15 with Tetsuya Nomura, if you know about those guys. But I think now, obviously, now that Bloodborne's winding down after its DLC, Hidetaka is on this full-time. Some of the early buzz about Dark Souls 3 has just been so exciting, and the early coverage by Edge with the brilliant iPad issue, which I really suggest that you go and check out. I'll put a link in the description to it. I'm sure you can download it, even if I think it was last month's issue. It has the beautiful animated cover of the Lord of Cinder / the Red Knight kneeling down and his sort of cape eternally burning, and I'm really looking forward to the next episode where we'll be talking about some of that symbology. But yeah, look, as well as what I was saying before about Hidetaka being a very deliberate person, that he makes decisions. He doesn't just name things. He doesn't just do things. He's a very, I think that's part of the reason why he's so reclusive, is that he kind of keeps his own logic and he keeps his own decision making to himself, and I think that's really admirable. And I know that these reveals that we're hearing, I think there's Game Informer are doing their coverage this week, and they're going to have, obviously, I think weekly or reveals, and I think the latest thing has been about the magic. That's been something that me, as primarily a Bloodborne player, and this would be Dark Souls 3 I will make it my first Dark Souls game that I'll be playing. I haven't even wrapped my head around the fact that I'd be using magic. I'm only really familiar with the visceral attacks and the everything that Bloodborne offers you, and it's a bit of an awkward kind of off-kilter way of entering into the saga, or rather, From Software. But it was really, really, really great to actually go back and, with the research of this episode, to actually look at how deeply ingrained this genre, particularly knights and dragons and such, it has been part of From Software's over since the King's Field, I believe the series was called, and one of the main sources of my motivation for doing this one, the series, that is essentially going to parallel the first one that I did for Bloodborne, is just that this Dark Souls 3 has, talk about bringing game, talk about stakes. It's going to be really, I think it's going to achieve things beyond what Bloodborne did, because it'll have several things informing its design. It'll have everything that was successful about Bloodborne. It'll have everything that people have given very vocal feedback about in terms of Dark Souls 2, which I think the main complaints were for some of its mechanics, including, I think, the healing gems, which people felt as though it took away some of the difficulty. Again, you can't do better than for your quote-unquote worst game of your series than for it to have been a game that did so well. I believe IGN gave it 9 out of 10. That's just unheard of, and I think it's my very hope my deep hope actually, that From Software keeps their integrity and keeps this sort of level of quality and keeps their mystique, and even after, far long after Dark Souls 3, definitely. But that's as pretty much the core of what I wanted to talk about with the inspiration and inception of Dark Souls 3 that I think is relevant to this stage, leading to release, where we're starting to, the embers of the hype are just starting to sort of glow. And I know I keep referring to glowing embers, but the iconography of this game, the marketing is just, it's infectious. I think it's been really masterful so far, and I'm really excited for what's basically coming ahead. And I think there was a recent interview I read where he didn't mention The Last Guardian specifically, but Hidetaka, I think he just briefly touched on how he was inspired, I think earlier on in Ico, by Ico, for some of the aesthetics of Dark Souls. And in the research I've been doing for this 3-part series, it obviously involved me sitting down and doing a bit of just extended video watching, and I've been watching the Dark Souls the movie, which I really hope all of you check out. I'll put the link to the description in the video. It's so beautiful, so poignant, and also to an extent I'd even say quite relaxing, and because it's just the isolated HD footage, isolated HD dialogue that's just been arranged in this beautiful way, and if you just almost just want background noise with these beautiful striking visuals, I think it's beautiful. And one of the promises and one of the things that I think was part of the inception of Hidetaka for Dark Souls 3 was to basically put as much of, or if not more, definitely it'll certainly be more, considering it's going to be a newer game, investment in the presentation of Dark Souls 3 than Bloodborne, even more so. And I think he, for being someone who, even with the time when Dark Souls, the original one in 2011, was released, it was definitely graphically impressive. But even now, as charming as the first game was, and as genuinely striking with some of its lighting effects, I believe it was one of the best looking games of its time. I'm not saying that it's starting to date, but there's when compared with Bloodborne and the amount of what the PS4 can do, I am so excited to see what the PlayStation 4 is going to be able to do with the Dark Souls world, and I'm sure that Hidetaka has that in his head, and the team is really excited about that, because when a series, which again, not as bad as other franchises have been beaten down, but with Dark Souls 2, it you can almost pictures From Software like taking a bit of a blow to even again that it was one of the highest rated failures, blah, if you want to put it that way, or divisive games, or what have you. When a game series has the level of professionalism and the level of craftsmanship and mastery of their medium as From Software, and how seriously they take this feedback. They are not Ubisoft, they are not EA. I really believe that with the fire that they have on top of what they've gained from Bloodborne, what they've had confirmed to them, the teams From Software, about what works with that, what's also fueling Dark Souls 3 is going to be wanting to step back up after that blow that they got. And when a game production series, or when anyone really is coming back from a step back, the step forward is usually powerful, it's usually impactful, and it's done resolutely, and there's belief, and there's assurance and confidence in that, and there's the underdog feeling of wanting to just to top it, to move past what was at least perceived to be a step backwards. And I think Dark Souls 3 is going to be an enormous leap forward. I mean, the 16-minute gameplay trailer that has been released with the Dancer of the Frigid Valley, with all of the things that have been said about the battle arts, and the new treatment, I think it's been kept quite under wraps, but with the story and the pluralization of the Lords of Cinder, which adds even more intrigue, which is what Dave Control got out of Hidetaka with an interview, it's possible that the Red Knight is a Lord of Cinder himself. The Twitter screenshot that I showed you before of From's Twitter basically says that he is trying to escape a cycle of some kind, and I find that to be quite intriguing, and something that, again, I'll be exploring it in the next video. And the other thing that it surprised me as well when I was first discovering Dark Souls 3's release was that when I looked further into who's actually working on it, and as well as discovering the detail about the co-directing, I actually found out that apart from, again, there was the other team who was working at the same time as Bloodborne, that they were probably communicating with each other, that there is a possibility that there's a shared engine between the two, which really strongly seems to be the case. There are even some enemies that actually look quite similar, in the way that they seem to, in the way that they'll seem to move. For example, there's a picture that I'm showing now, which looks very much like Bloodborne's brick troll. It's also got a very Bloodborne-esque hound, in the foreground, and this has led some people to be a little bit concerned. I don't want to discuss just just the excitement of leading up to Dark Souls 3, because there is an aspect of there's a component of the Dark Souls kind of community who they're just the slightest bit concerned that Dark Souls 3 is borrowing a little too much and coming a little too quickly after Bloodborne, and there have been some concerns about annualization. Well, I can pretty much put those concerns to rest by saying that it's been confirmed in multiple outlets that Dark Souls 3 has been in development for a long time, and that's backed up by Vatvidia, by Dave Control, who actually played the game in person, and whom I hope to be able to visit some of the outlets and some of the events that they were invited to. It seems that because of those opportunities, they're able to gain tremendous insights and enables them to provide a lot of great coverage, which I'm looking forward to making my way towards, and however long it'll take. It might even be I'm 35 before I'm able to go to one of the events, but I don't really mind. I'm not in too much of a rush, but yeah. Now, I wanted to tie off this first part, the Inception and Inspiration podcast, with, first of all, some statements, and also a little bit of a thematic quasi-question and answer thing, because I would like to engage some of you who joined me with this channel those months ago when Bloodborne first came out. Now, the statements, I covered a little bit of this in the first part of this podcast about how the nature of Tweety Gamer and how I launched the channel with these podcasts, and that this is what gave me the views at first, and knowing as I did at the time that Bloodborne was going to be quite a highly searched term, I wanted to make some statements about how I am very, very aware that Dark Souls 3, in its own way, even possibly in an even more cryptic way, is building its own little groundswell of intrigue, and as will be shown in the next episode, which will mention the Red Knight. Freudian slip, because that's also from Arthurian lore, which is something that we're going to talk about in the next episode. I've been aware that these aspects of Dark Souls have been leaked out, and I was obviously didn't have my focus on when the original Dark Souls came out, but from reviewing some of the documentaries, including I think it's just the generic making of Dark Souls the original, which is just a 3-part video you can find fairly easily on YouTube. There was their core components, and this has been again covered by some of the other outlets here on YouTube and in podcasts. But basically, like the Bonfireside Chat, sorry about that. Definitely check those two out. And also, if they're still doing stuff, I highly recommend the Dark Souls 2, which hopefully will become the Dark Souls 3, with the arrival of Dark Souls 3. But basically, the Lord of Cinder teaser, the Easter egg of that word, and learning that there are multiple Lords of Cinder pretty much after recording this, I'm going to be just jumping on the web and learning even more, as much as I can, about the Lords of Cinder and what this could possibly mean, and what the Doomsday scenario could entail for the world of Dark Souls 3. And there's, I believe, a pretty obvious hint that I don't think we need to stray too much from in terms of speculation, which is the fact that Dark Souls 3, being a Doomsday game, being this the feeling that something is radically shifting with the world. And again, it's not like the original Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 felt uneventful, or felt like their central statement is, this is what the world is. There was obviously the events of the Chosen Undead, which had amazing and very deep running implications on the world and the lore of Dark Souls. And I'm actually quite a big fan of the fact that they're not gonna do I don't believe it's going to be a chronological sequel in terms of in the style of conventional, like for example Assassin's Creed 2 compared to the original Assassin's Creed obviously had a narrative link where I believe it took place in the spoilers, you had a few years to play it, the modern day sections of Assassin's Creed, which that story continued, but there was this jumping around of time, at various different times of the Dark Souls universe. And I know that lore, Hidetaka, there have been some incredible signs that I've been discovering in researching for these podcasts, that Hidetaka goes even beyond what I thought he would, in terms of the way that he names things and the purposefulness of his creations, and how the man, quite honestly, he puts an untold, and I believe never to be told, amount of effort into his games. A great example was, I think it's Pogos, I really hope I got his name right, I'll put a link to in the description to his video, but it's, I think, one of his 10 things you didn't know about Bloodborne videos, and his revelation about Erden, the Chapel of Erden, and the Erdipal aspect. And I'll be posting some screenshots of his video there. I highly recommend you check it out. I'd like to consider him a very kindred peer of mine, and I'm happy to send people his way. I'll be putting links to all of the most ideal Dark Souls community coverage people in this description. Again, people whom I'd humbly consider to be my peers. That was something that just came as complete surprise, and those eyebrow-raising moments of recognizing how much effort and detail is being put into these games, especially Hidetaka when he is supervising and directing. And one of the things that I'm sure, as I mentioned earlier, about how the team probably has this fire, even more than Bloodborne, because Bloodborne was to a degree disconnected from Dark Souls, and there was a different kind of fire fueling it. It was the fire of, this is a new IP, we need to sort of step out, and obviously there's going to be some addressing and some incidental patching up of what Dark Souls 2, the reception that it got, and that it'll help smooth that over just by confirming, look, this is the same team, we haven't lost our touch. There was that was more peripheral to the fact that they were motivated in their efforts by wanting to firmly and confidently establish a new IP. Whereas with Dark Souls 3, the motivation is absolutely coming from wanting to basically make the best Dark Souls ever, the one that it combines everything, the learned lessons, the success, the analytics probably of the Bloodborne campaign, the Bloodborne marketing campaign, and everything that was to do with revealing details of that game went so well, and I'm sure that data is there for From Software and for execs to focus their build upon with Dark Souls 3, and I would not put it past them to basically go through, now that we actually have some insight into how the marketing of Dark Souls 3 is going to play out with I believe the Nightmare Collection, for example, the Nightmare edition of Bloodborne was revealed not that far after its actual reveal in 2014. I believe, I personally believe, or was it 2013? I think it was revealed at the same time as The Order. I'll check that out. But there was a steady trickle, and the releases of information via the PlayStation blog were also incredible. I don't know, obviously, if the PlayStation blog is going to be releasing details of Dark Souls 3 in the same way, because it's not a PlayStation exclusive, which I'm sure Xbox One owners are happy about. But I'm sure that something along those lines, probably centering around the Facebook and the Twitter of, and also the official site of Namco. Here you go, not Nando's, Namco Bandai. I believe that they, with their official outlets, I actually managed to pronounce it. It's late. I'm absolutely sure that they're going to be putting together something similar, and without a doubt, if not the first little roll of the snowball, the reveal about the Red Knight and his or her journey towards breaking the cycle. It's just those two little droplets, those two little grains of story have already completely stoked my fire of interest in this. Now, Bloodborne in many ways could be said to have been the explosion of Hidetaka's creativity in terms of weirdness, in terms of, I'm thinking about things like the doll that was revealed, at one point, the Hunter's Dream. There's here at this stage, at least, we're hearing about what will be included and what will be revealed, instead of what is we're going to actually physically see, professional A-roll gameplay footage, not just B-roll stuff, that we're going to be able to see, and better screenshots and everything. But to tie off basically this podcast with my own personal impressions, because I've just been covering what I can surmise, and I'm being objectively as possible, and what I've been able to glean, as I've mentioned, with the sources that I have, found. And again, just generally relying on the merits of these shows as exploratory, as basically discussion pieces that can kind of set your imagination alight and just have you thinking and wondering and pondering about how Dark Souls 3 is going to take shape. My personal interpretation and my personal anticipation and investment in Dark Souls 3, based on what's been revealed so far, which now we're in September, so we have two trailers, the cinematic and the gameplay trailer, and I would say around about 20 to 30 screenshots and 10 or 15 works of concept art, probably a bit less than that. Look, as excited as I am, I'm not going to give From a free pass, and nor would I expect them to give one to me for their game at this stage. I'm not saying that Bloodborne that process kind of revealed any ugly secrets. I mean, one thing completely unrelated to the quality of the game was just the exposure that it got. It actually impacted me playing it because of some of the spoilers that were leaking out. I think IGN, as wonderful as they are and as comprehensive as they are, they were leaking names. They were leaking, this is shortly after its release, IGN do the full gamut. You can't visit IGN without seeing, allusions to The Hidden Village and The Cleric Beast, and all of these names spilling. And one of the best things about From games is their secrecy and finding out the information for yourself. So, personally, it's a double-edged thing. I want to find out more. I need to find out more. It hasn't sold me completely yet. I think in the next few weeks that will be absolutely solved. I believe there's going to be a big information reveal shortly. I think on the 13th, either probably today. Something I had heard on a forum. I'll try and find a screenshot for that information. But definitely at Tokyo Game Show, where a bunch of things are going to get revelations, including Final Fantasy 15 and other things that Tweety Game is going to cover. But that's absolutely true. I did do a double take when Dark Souls 3 was announced, and it was a little bit negatively affected by the fact that the No, and again, not dissing those guys, it's just that I think they were connected, this is objectively speaking, prior to their reveal of Dark Souls 3, they were connected to some reveals that ended up being false for another game. And when I first saw, the information trickle out, it was through this outlet of leak, and I kind of had a bit of PTSD about that, and that's one side of the sword. The other side of the sword is that I cannot wait to learn more and to also see the game progress visually. Bloodborne was and is, it's just heart-arrestingly gorgeous. It basically makes you pay attention just with how much visual intricacy and visual detailing they put into it. Anytime I'm seeing Bloodborne footage, it's weird. I have this weird moment of just wanting to sit, and out of respect of those artists who worked on adding all of those details. The brambles, the puddles, the tiny little pieces of swaying like grass, the cobwebs, the dynamics, the smoke, I will say at this stage Bloodborne is the better looking game between Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne. I would have to say, concede that. I'm obviously evaluating it based on some objectives and some universal things, which is that Bloodborne there was a aspect to its visual design that allowed for more variation and kind of a complete H.P. Lovecraftian weirdness. And look, it is a genre piece, Bloodborne. It is cosmic horror, gothic horror and cosmic horror, and there's a horror aspect undeniably with Bloodborne. But with Dark Souls, and this is something that I'm going to slowly be adjusting to, is Dark Souls is not primarily a horror. It's primarily a very, very dark and often quite creepy and almost terrifying dark fantasy. So dark fantasy horror could be a vague term that could be used to describe Dark Souls 3 and just Dark Souls in general. But with the trailer, which I'll be showing some screenshots of here, with what is speculated to be the Lord of Cinder rising from his grave, his face, his face completely reminds me of that. If any of you remember the old Muppets film, Muppets Christmas Carol, it reminds me of the Ghost of Christmas Future, which terrified me as a child. And look, Bloodborne, one of the reasons I stepped away from Bloodborne, because I stepped away, and please don't judge me, but I stepped away after Father Gascoigne, was a combination of the spoilers, and it was just physically difficult for me to play it, because it was just, I would play at night with my headphones, and this community of Souls content makers, they're a happy bunch. They're a pensive bunch. They're also quite animated, especially with Lobos making his fluoro characters for his playthroughs and Dave Control doing his funny skits. But if you stripped all of that away and actually assessed in terms of cinematography, in terms of sound design and composition and just the general everythingness of these games, the Dark Souls in particular, they, if it's just stripped down to a person playing it with headphones at night and just being fully immersed into the world without thinking of the Sunbro thing or the Dark Souls parody cartoons, it's actually, when you just strip it down and it's just you, some headphones, nighttime, and the game, it's oh my gosh, it's terrifying. It was terrifying for me, especially, for example, the moment for me with Bloodborne when I realized this is straight up scary shit. Was when there's that grove of barrels. I'll show a screenshot here, where you basically discover the underwater passages, and just the shift in sound design, from going from up in the surface where there's, noises of wind and howling beasts, when you just go and everything, the air closes in around you and the walls close in around you, and you start hearing just sloshes in the water and beasts, the low moaning of beasts, and then shifting bodies in the darkness. It's something that, I think that with the trailer, it's been pretty. It's there's in no small measure, it's been alluded to the fact that Dark Souls 3 will be taking some of Bloodborne's horror aspects to the next level. The Dancer of the Frigid Valley, compared to, and I'm just going to talk about her for a little bit. Dancer of the Frigid Valley, who is so far my favorite design, along with this boss here. I'm going to call him the unnamed bestial mace-wielding guy, so the mace boss. These two have my interest peaked the most. I remember the one that did it for me with Dark Souls was the cleric beast, with his enormous bust that was made, the physical one for the conventions, with his shagginess, and the speculation. My head just exploded with speculation about his character design and what it meant, and from a lore point of view, again with that guarantee that Hidetaka Miyazaki does these things purposefully, and there is a reason why, for example, with the Dancer of the Frigid Valley, that she is wearing that crown from the trailer. What could it mean that she is wearing that crown? Again, this is all too rare with game coverage, and also with a franchise, because with some of the weirdness, say for example with Metal Gear Solid 5, there is that acknowledgement of what does that mean? This is weird, but they also are 4+ games preceding it, which have proven, as brilliant as Hideo Kojima is, that sometimes stuff is just weird in Metal Gear, and often after you've discovered it, it's something like ends up being a vision, or nanomachines, or just the general weirdness. Now, I wouldn't have sufficient evidence for both camps of Metal Gear and Dark Souls to basically compare their respective weirdnesses. I think that they each have their own flavor and their own purpose. But one thing I know for sure with From Software's games in terms of their quote-unquote weirdness is that it always leads to something like the presence of the crown, or the cleric beast's left arm being stupidly extended because of how its proximity to the heart, and how it would have meant that the scourge of the beast spread fastest to the left arm, and that's why it's longer. These details, I can't help but just feel fully qualified and fully permitted to start wildly speculating about who this Dancer of the Frigid Valley is. It's something that I was on a flight recently, a 10+ hour flight, and the content of it was a holiday with my girlfriend. The content of some of the videos that were available, the in-flight entertainment, it wasn't intriguing me that much. And I kid you not, I spent in this area, this environment of having no internet, I spent a good 3 to 4 hours without even noticing, putting together my own thoughts about the Dancer of the Frigid Valley, about the mace-wielding beast in armor, the worshippers, other details from the Dark Souls 3 coverage, or the Dark Souls 3 released content so far, just based off of nomenclature. I mean, the Wall of Lothric. I've also been simultaneously investigating all my original favorite, just what sort of began my interest in the genre in the first place, and Never-Ending Story, with some of its nomenclature, like the Swamp of Sorrows, Swamps of Sadness, rather. From Software has the best nomenclature, the most intriguing, imagination-sparking nomenclature in any game. Anything that, the Emerald Herald, the Artorias of the Abyss. There's this care and love that's been put into these the naming of characters, and not only that, it's not just for nothing. That's the thing. There's a reason for it, and I cannot wait to discover those reasons with the Dancer of the Frigid Valley. I want to know what the Frigid Valley is, why she's called the Dancer, and why her dual blades is one is flame and the other is smoke. I could absolutely include a little bit of speculation in this, even early on. I believe I did the same thing with the Cleric Beast, and some of my predictions, I'm very happy to say, ended up being right, with the Cleric Beast obviously being a member of the Healing Church, and how their bestialness, the extent to their transformation, was proportionate to their role in their closeness to the blood, and how much access they would have had to it, and the guilt and everything related to the fact that these leaders of the church were responsible for so many people's sorrows and pain, and that form of permanent body transformation as punishment was confirmed to me in many ways when I eventually got round to playing Bloodborne and seeing the content. But with the Dancer of the Frigid Valley, my main speculation with her twin blades, with fire in one hand and ash in the other, is that there's going to be an element of sadness to her, an element of poignancy with her spectral cloak, the smoky cloak, which would allude to possibly faded glory or faded loyalties, and the facelessness, something has robbed from her, sucked from her life. It's and some of the things with Dark Souls that I have yet. I'm still an early scholar of the Dark Souls world, and I'm just becoming familiar with the lore of the giants, and to find out whether she's of some form of giant. That's yet to be confirmed from me in my investigations, which will continue after this podcast, and with what's been released. Probably the creature I'm most intrigued by, right after the Red Knight. Those two could be the Bloodborne's hunter. There's no other word in promotional materials that they gave to that main hunter with the tricorn hat. So the hunter and the Cleric Beast, their analogous equivalents in Dark Souls 3 are the Red Knight and the Dancer of the Frigid Valley so far, simply because she was the first revealed boss. If they reveal a Dancer of the Frigid Valley gigantic display with her lurching over in that Voldo, just completely creepy style of movement, it's been one of the, again, it's something that even on a long flight I'm thinking about, just that mic drop of lore possibility that From are known for. I hope they never change with that. I really don't. Speaking of the theme of never changing, always with these Tweety casts, there is a possibility that they will be one-offs, but I'm going to be sticking to the 3-part format, which I believe resonated with the initial community, and with the one that I hope to build on with Tweety Gamer. And I make a commitment always to make these videos at least 1 hour long, because there is no excuse with this material, with the amount of effort that's been put into it by the team. I don't take any aspect of their game development efforts for granted, and there is always going to be something to earnestly discuss and to invest speculation in. And the 1 hour promise for these videos is something that I'm making. It's what I'd be making. It's what I'd want myself to be making if I was a listener of Tweety Gamer, as someone who puts on podcasts at work and just wants to space out to some conversation about something I'm looking forward to. And these new Tweety casts that I'll be releasing about Dark Souls 3 will be no different. So a few things that I'll just update you with the last sort of 2 minutes and a half of this this podcast, or this Tweety cast, is the possibility that I'll be getting Brendan to join me with some another genre. I'll try and keep the Tweety casts possibly just with myself in these kind of free-flowing, intimate contents, again, just the equivalent of speaking with me about it, even though it can kind of feel a bit insane on the other end, just talking to no one, just straight from my heart about what this stuff is going to take shape, and my own relationship with it, and sharing that with you, which I'm so grateful for the comments that I get, and I'm looking forward to hopefully receiving more if that's something that ends up happening after this video. Brendan from So Keen For It, I'm going to be looking at possibly getting him on board for the Battlefront Tweety casts, which, there's going to be a build-up towards Star Wars, which is going to feature content on this channel, let's just put it that way, and that's putting it lightly. Greatly anticipating that game, and you can look forward to that. So there has been a tradition with me of basically dropping, just for those who listen to this show, dropping little hints of what's to come. So I hope you've enjoyed that as well. But basically, yeah, this has been episode 4 of Tweety Gamer, and please like, share, and subscribe, and thank you so much, all of you. Bye.